What's up, everybody? Matt Maran here for another weekly update. So, lots of exciting news to go over this week. The first thing is actually something that came out at the end of last week, and I didn't have time to work it into the edit of the video, but that is that the Shelby GT500 was spied for the first time without any heavy camo on it. So it just basically had a wrap on it, and it still is, tough to see with the camo. The camo does its job really well, because a lot of people, when I posted the picture on Instagram, were like, it doesn't look any different than a regular Mustang, and if you look closely, it is very different, but at a quick glance I could see how some people might see that. Anyway, the big news after those first batch of pictures came out was some new pictures of a manual transmission one testing as well, which is a good thing because there was some concern that it was only going to be like a dual clutch or only on an automatic, and this proves that they're definitely testing a manual version. So the big stuff here to point out is obviously you have the larger air intakes there in the front bumper. It also looks like the fenders are even a little bit wider than a GT350, which is cool. Also that vented hood, which we already saw in the teaser video that was revealed in Detroit back in January. The camo really covers that up, but if you look at it at the right angle, you can see those vents in it, and it's going to be very aggressive. Most likely will stand out, and it'll be kind of a black contrast over whatever the color of the vehicle will be. So that all looks really cool. This one didn't have any kind of spoiler on the back. We have seen other vehicles spy testing with spoilers earlier on in the development process, and I'm sure they're probably going to be doing, like a track pack version or something like that will have more aggressive aero. I think the one we're looking at here on the streets is the more casual, cruiser version that's, a little more affordable. And so it also, there was a quick little drive-by video that was posted, and it sounds most likely like it's still going to be some type of 5.2 liter. Not sure it's gonna be cross plane crank or flat plane crank. That still remains to be seen. But anyway, either way, it looks really cool. One interesting thing that's new, though, is, it has the old headlights, which, the GT350 is also continuing on with the old headlights for these new ones here, not getting the new headlights. But this vehicle does have the new taillights, which is interesting because even the 2018 Shelbys don't have the new taillights. They still even stuck with the old taillights, even though those are direct swaps. Whereas the front end, you still have to do some changes to fit the new headlights in. With the taillights, they're direct swaps. So I'm kind of surprised the GT350 didn't get them, but it looks like they are doing that, at least for the 500. So that's cool to see. But anyway, we'll have to wait, until whenever this vehicle is revealed. Rumors are all over the place. Some are saying it's sooner, some are saying it's later. So we'll just have to wait and see. Another even faster Ford Mustang that was officially revealed this week was the 2018 Mustang Cobra Jet. When I say revealed, there's just one shadowy image. It was just announced by Ford, but we don't have too many details on it yet, and there might be a good reason why. So anyway, this Cobra Jet, it's not street legal. This is the drag special that Ford makes, similar to the Demon, except the Demon's actually road legal. This you cannot drive on the road. It doesn't even have a VIN number on it. You can't register them. They're only building 68 of these Cobra Jets to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Cobra Jet. Originally, started back in 1968. They did say, as Ford did as far as the details, it's going to be a Coyote V8 engine, but it's been bumped up to 5.2 liters of displacement. So it's not the Voodoo 5.2 in the Shelby. It's just, bored out 5 liter essentially. And it's also supercharged, they said. So if this sounds, I'm part of the theory is that this is also the same motor as the GT500. A bored out Coyote with a supercharger would make it unique enough so it's not just a supercharged 5 liter, but it also doesn't take away any thunder from the Shelby GT350, I guess. Again, that's still just up in the air, but there has been stuff that said that the Voodoo would be unique to the GT350, and so even a supercharged version probably would go against that, but we'll have to see. Anyway, so because this engine might very well be a disguised version of the GT500 motor, they have not given any horsepower numbers or any other details, except they're claiming a mid-8-second quarter-mile time here for this Cobra Jet, but that's because it's drag prepped. They even got rid of the independent rear suspension, so it has just a Ford 9-inch rear end, very primitive. It's just for drag racing, and that's why it's able to do those times. But still sounds very promising, and of course these will be probably running race gas, so again, doesn't mean mean that a GT500 will run a mid 8-second quarter or anything even close to that. But, you know, still very, very impressive there from Ford. Lots of other Ford stories this week, a few more. First, the 2020 Ford Focus ST was spied running around the Nürburgring, and looks similar to the ST line that we saw that was revealed for Europe last week, along with the official Focus reveal. But this does look a little bit sportier, you know, bigger rear spoiler there and stuff. The interesting rumor, though, about this car is that apparently there's a rumor it might get the 1.5-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder that's in the new Fiesta ST overseas that we don't get here in the States, unfortunately. In the Fiesta, it makes only, like, I think 197 horsepower, or it might be 201 horsepower, but right in line with the outgoing Fiesta. You know, it's just a smaller, downsized engine, and just turn the boost up on those turbos. And it makes sense in the Fiesta, but in the Focus, I mean, the current Focus has 252 horsepower, and all the other 1.5-liter turbo motors out there, that are actually 4-cylinders in the Civic, SI, and stuff like that only do 200-odd horsepower. And so, you know, to do a 3-cylinder 1.5-liter, that's going to be a lot of power to be pushing, you know, if you want to do, you know, 260 horsepower out of a 3-cylinder engine. I mean, if they did do that, I would not expect a lot of tuning potential because that thing's got to be tuned within an inch of its life to begin with. That's just a lot of boost to be running through a little engine from the factory on normal gas. Anyway, we'll have to wait to see, you know, on that. But anyway, cool to see they're working on that. Also, Ford was spy testing the 2020 Escape, which is all new. And you can see actually is going to have a similar styling to the Focus. It looks like it's going to have a similar type of headlight shape. And even the taillights in the back look like a very similar design to the Focus. Obviously, this is much larger than the Focus, and it's about the same size as the outgoing Escape. Some people were thinking the Escape was going to get bigger and maybe even have a third row here for 2020, but it doesn't look like that's the case, but that's fine. I think everything's ballooning, and if you want you know, a larger SUV, just go for the Explorer or the Edge, and so, you know, I think this is just fine. The current Escape, people really seem to like the size of it, and so I think not messing with a good thing is a good idea. Anyway, so it looks pretty far along from these pictures, and so because of that, you know, we could see it by the end of this year, or maybe, you know, Detroit in January next year will make sense too. We'll have to wait and see, but cool to see that Spied running around. And the last Ford news here is they've officially announced the fuel economy numbers for the 2018 F-150 Diesel, which is a little bit of a later release than the regular 2018 F-150s that have been out for a long time now. But anyway, it's got that 3-liter turbo diesel V6 engine that's they've now said going to get 30 miles per gallon on the highway, 22 in the city, and 25 combined, which is pretty good for this motor. I mean, it does 440 pound-feet of torque, 250 horsepower, but it can tow 11,400 pounds and has a 1,940 pound payload. So that's all best-in-class numbers for that segment of pickup truck. And so, you know, really cool that they're, you know, finally getting those out there to people, and so cool to see that. BMW this past week officially revealed all the details on the M2 Competition. So last week, a couple things leaked out, and most of that stuff's all been confirmed here this week. So it's been confirmed it's going to have 405 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque from a 3-liter twin-turbo inline-six engine, you know, this, a detuned version of the M3 and M4 motor. It's also confirmed it's going to be available still with both a manual and an automatic. That's one thing last week, is it seemed like it was only like DCT, but this is proving it's definitely going to be offered with a manual transmission still as well if you'd like one, which is really great. It's going to be really awesome. And other things here, they've announced it's going to be doing 4.2 seconds 0 to 60 with the manual. If you go for the automatic, then it's 4 seconds flat. That manual, by the way, is the same, I think, 7-speed dual clutch transmission, again, that you get in the M3 and M4. Also, a bunch of other stuff's taken from the M3 and M4. You get an upgraded engine oil supply system, 3 radiator setup from M4 Competition, partially aluminum front and rear axles, and carbon fiber reinforced plastic for the strut brace that you also see in the M3 and M4. There's also an all-new active exhaust that has flaps that open depending on the drive mode. It should make it sound pretty good. It also has an active M rear diff with a special mode that they are quoted as saying increases the freedom available to drivers at the limit, allowing moderate controlled drifts with help of the DSC system. So So sounds kind of like a drift mode to me. And so yeah, anyway, these are going to be available this summer, they're saying, but they haven't announced pricing yet. But whatever the pricing is, I'm sure dealers will be charging even more for them. And so anyway, interesting to see that. And the Beijing Motor Show is coming up here in about a week or so. And Lexus has revealed one picture and then a teaser video for the 2019 Lexus ES they're going to be debuting here in Beijing. So the full reveal is going to be on April 25th for the Lexus ES here. But what we can see does look very good. Looks like a smaller version of the LS, of course, and looks very good though. And anyway, we'll have to wait until the 25th to get all the details and more pictures on that. Buick has also shown 3 pictures here ahead of their debut of the Enspire EV crossover concept. Still just a concept, but this is also what they're showing at Beijing. And it's got a bold spec sheet here. It's going to be claiming 370 miles of all-electric range, a 4-second 0 to 60 time thanks to a 550 horsepower electric motor. So yeah, I mean, I could see the range being a possibility because they, obviously everyone wants to be Tesla with range and stuff. But as far as that 550 horsepower electric motor, there's a slim chance that's going to ever come to production. I mean, a 4-second 0 to 60, Buick sounds really fun, even in a crossover form, but it just doesn't make sense practically. I mean, maybe as an upgrade down the road or something, but I think, that would just make it so much more expensive and price it out of a lot of the competition. But anyway, it looks beautiful, I gotta say. It's obviously a concept. Buick concepts often do look very, very good. But hopefully it looks just that good, whenever they do finally make a production version of this, which is almost a guarantee. Maybach also has shown a teaser for the interior of their, what they're calling the Vision Mercedes-Maybach Ultimate Luxury, which is the pretty long name there. But anyway, they're showing that in Beijing. And Autocar is reporting they are going to be doing a production version of this. It's going to debut in LA in November, according to them. And it's going to be based on the new GLS, which is going to be, we haven't seen the new GLS yet either, but, going to be very large, like 7 or 8 passenger SUV. And so this Maybach's going to be, right up there with it as being even more luxurious than that. So anyway, cool to see that picture at least. It does look very cool from the one little teaser image. Another teaser, lots of teasers this week. Aston Martin has shown a teaser revealing they're bringing back the DBS name in June, and they're also bringing back the Superleggera name. And we just have one little teaser of what the front end kind of looks like stretched over a vinyl wrap or something. And anyway, this is basically the DB11 based, faster DB11. This is going to replace the Vanquish that's currently on the market, which was based on the old, DB9. And so anyway, this is going to have a tuned version of the twin-turbo V12 that's in the regular DB11. Rumors are saying it's over 700 horsepower. Some are saying even high 700s because they want to compete with the Ferrari 812 Superfast and stuff like that. And so we'll have to see, just how much. But it sounds like it's going to be a lightweight car, too, if they're putting the Superleggera name on it as well. That's what they used for the lightweight models back in the day. But anyway, yeah, I can't wait till June to see that thing. It's going to be amazing, I'm sure. Another amazing thing supposedly is Automobili Pininfarina, which is this new thing that was purchased by an Indian group, I think, in 2015, and it's going to be a new supercar brand because there's all these, it seems like every week there's a new, boutique supercar manufacturer. But anyway, so this one, has the beautiful designs of Pininfarina, though, which is one big thing they have going for them. And anyway, they revealed a couple sketches here and their specs for their EV hypercar that they're planning at some point. They didn't even give it an actual release date. All they said it's going to be called the PF-Zero. It's going to be $2.5 million each, roughly. They're only making 100 cars or less. They're going to have a 250 mile per hour top speed, under 2 seconds 0 to 60 time with all-wheel drive, 186 mile per hour in 12 seconds from 0 to 186, and then a 310 mile range. So basically, I'm kind of viewing this as a prettier Rimac, since it has very similar specs to the Rimac and stuff, and actually a similar price as well. And I think they even said that Rimac could be the person that's supplying the electric batteries and motors for them. So, and if that's the case, then it's really just going to be a wilder looking Rimac in a lot of ways. Obviously, the Rimac I think is going to have higher autonomous capabilities and other tech, but to kind of water it down. I think that's kind of the gist here. But anyway, it sounds promising whenever those come. And but again, they're only making 100 or less, so very rare beasts anyway. Another vehicle that was spied again this week is BMW was spied testing the BMW Z4 again, the 2019 one that we've been waiting forever for, same basis as the Supra. But this time, the new news is that we see it with the roof down, so we can actually see the interior a little better. And this interior is actually like basically production ready, which hopefully gives us a little more faith that this thing is going to be revealed sometime soon, because we're all getting old and gray over here. But basically, what we can see from the interior is that, you know, it's got the redesigned climate controls that we've seen in a couple of the other BMWs recently that are coming. The new X5 and X7 is going to get the same setup, 8 Series, all those. You also see the same kind of gauge cluster you see in the new upcoming 8 Series that was spied recently. All looks very good, though. All looks very promising. I'm not sure when this thing's finally going to be revealed. I mean, it could be the Paris Motor Show in October, LA in November, or it could be something sooner. I would hope, you know, maybe just do an online reveal over the summer or something, because it is a Roadster after all, and so releasing it in the fall would be a little bit of a dud. But anyway, cool to see that. Porsche was spied testing the next-gen 911 Turbo this past week as well, and so we've seen tons of spy shots again of all these new 911s testing the 992 generation, but this is one of the first times we've seen a better look at the 911 Turbo version, and the fact that it looks fairly far along, you know, also means that it shouldn't be too far behind the regular 911 reveal, which is rumored to take place again in Paris in October, and then, you know, a US debut probably LA in November, and so, you know, this Turbo version could come, you know, sometime early next year, maybe New York Auto Show next April or something like that. But anyway, looks pretty good there. Also, another Porsche was spied running around the Nürburgring was the Boxster Spyder yet again. And before we saw it with a little more camo, it was a little rougher looking. This one looks to be basically production ready. Looks pretty nice and polished, aside from a little bit of detailing there on the rear diffuser. That's still a little rough. But anyway, you know, it's been rumored to have the return of the flat 6 to the Boxster, or the, you know, 718 they're calling it now. And so hopefully that turns out to be true. You can hopefully still get it with a manual, and would make for a really sweet car, although again very, very expensive. But anyway, cool to see that. Another vehicle that was spied was the 2020 Toyota Corolla this past week, and this is our first time seeing it without the big heavy bags and plastic heavy camo. This time it's just a wrap, and that reveals a lot, because now we can see it basically is the same front end as the Corolla hatchback, which makes sense. I mean, you know, they're both called the Corolla after all. And I will have a review of the Corolla hatch. I drove it this past weekend, and that's going to be posted on April 30th whenever the embargo lifts for the Corolla hatchback. But I mean, we can see, I mean, the front bumper here on this with the wrap, it looks like it might be a little more toned down than the hatchback, and of course the back end's all different, obviously, since it's a trunk instead of a hatch, but it looks a lot more subdued than the more wilder looking rear hatch on the Corolla hatchback. But yeah, the taillights in the back there look similar to what you see on like a Mazda 3 or Ford Fusion, you know, just from what we can see with everything camoed up. You know, I'm sure it probably looks a good amount different, but just kind of from first knee-jerk reaction. Anyway, you know, it's probably going to have the same powertrains as, again, the current Corolla hatch, which I'll be talking about again on April 30th and all that. But anyway, the debut for this, since it is seeming like it's pretty much based on that, and, you know, that's already been revealed with the hatchback version, hopefully this will be coming relatively soon, maybe sometime, you know, this summer, or if nothing else, you know, again, the start of the auto show season for next year, you know, with LA in November would make sense too. But anyway, cool to see that. Also, Cadillac was spied testing the XT6 for the first time out in the open, and so this is, you know, basically a larger crossover to slot in between the XT5 and the Cadillac. It's going to be a 3-row SUV, so, you know, the headlights and taillights are definitely not final, but this gives us a good idea at least of the shape and the size of, you know, what they're going to be going for here with this new XT6, this is something that's likely to arrive. I mean, some people are saying before the end of the year, but I feel like it's more likely to show up probably either in January in Detroit or April of next year, in New York. But anyway, cool to see that. And other Cadillac news, though, is there's actually news this week that their current CEO, Johan de Nijssen, I probably butchered that. Anyway, he has stepped down as CEO, and they have a new CEO now who was previously the head of GM Canada. His name's Steve Carlisle, and he's now stepping in as the new CEO. And so this was a really abrupt change, and some people were thinking it's because people within Cadillac were getting annoyed that they didn't have the crossovers out fast enough with this crossover craze booming, and Cadillac only has the XT5 and the Escalade. I mean, they just revealed the XT4, but that's still several months out, and so, they're kind of missing out on this a little bit. But I think a lot of people are happy with the XT5, and I've been seeing a lot driving around here, so who knows, could be something else going on, behind the scenes. But anyway, interesting to hear that. Also, Volkswagen has appointed a new CEO this past week. Now, they've been swapping CEOs a lot ever since the whole Dieselgate thing, but the current CEO, Matthias Muller, is being thrown out, and I guess the board has voted him out, and so he's being replaced by Herbert Diess, who was also, I guess, a former executive also within Volkswagen, who's just moving now up to the CEO position there, and that's going to help with their whole overhaul that Volkswagen's doing. Other Volkswagen news that we're actually going to see the effects of relatively soon is Volkswagen has announced plans to install EV charging stations at over 100 Walmarts in 34 different U.S. states by the middle of 2019. So here in the next basically 12 to 14 months here. And so this is part of the Electrify America project, which is wanting to put a total of 2,000 chargers across the country by, I think, sometime next year. And so as far as the whole Walmart installation thing, most of the Walmarts selected are going to be along highways because they want to facilitate, cross-country travel and, people that are on road trips and things like that. Those are the ones that need to get the range quickly. Anyone who's just going to their local Walmart and back can just charge at home. So I think this is going to be focused on, again, people along the highway who want to stop. And the interesting choice of a Walmart, though, because, Walmart's not like a typical, hey, we're on a road trip, let's stop at a Walmart for 20 minutes and hang out. Like, a Starbucks, sure, or, some other place you get a bite to eat, a McDonald's or something, that would make sense. Obviously, Walmarts do sometimes have that kind of stuff built into them, but yeah, just an interesting choice, but, they have plenty of real estate, I guess, in the Walmart parking lots to, put in these charging stations. But anyway, interesting to see that. Also, going along with that, Volkswagen has also announced this past week plans to introduce autonomous parking into their vehicles starting in 2020, and they are already testing this at the Hamburg airport, and I guess there they have a separate area of the airport parking garage where they're going to have only these test vehicles going through and learning how to park themselves, but eventually the goal is to have these things be able to park themselves anywhere with a mix of human and automated drivers, doing the parking. And so anyway, again, this is the autonomous tech I can actually get behind, because no one enjoys searching for a parking spot. That type of stuff would be great. And then whenever it comes time to actually be on an open road, then I would want to take over the driving, but it would be nice to have a car that parks itself. And so anyway, cool to see them working on that. Toyota has also announced plans to further automate their vehicles, and they've announced that starting in 2021, they plan to start selling vehicles that can talk to each other with short-range wireless tech. Now, this has already been floated. I think Audi has done this with their vehicle-to-infrastructure technology, which talks to red lights, and I believe they want to start talking to other Audis soon, and I think Cadillac actually has this with the CTS already, but I don't think it's really being used. So Toyota wants to do this primarily with car-to-car stuff, in addition to, I think, the infrastructure stuff. But the car-to-car stuff, they said, for example, if two cars are approaching an intersection, and the, computers calculate that these two cars are going to hit if one doesn't stop or, whatever, then, they say, supposedly it could avoid like 600,000 accidents a year or something like that. And, it would be a good thing. But again, this would have to be something that would be intelligent enough to be okay to not talk to a vehicle, because when all vehicles are connected, it'll be easy. but a mix of automated vehicles and human-driven vehicles is going to be a little bit of a challenge. So we'll have to see how that all works out. But apparently they said that Toyota already has this across over 100,000 Toyotas in Japan. So I guess this is something that's already fully kind of functioning over there, and they want to have it in most of their lineup here in the United States by mid-2020s at some point. Subaru this past week has trademarked the Evoltis name, Evoltis. So a little derivative of the Chevy Volt, but again with electric stuff, which is what this is probably going to be on. There's only so many electric names you can have, and so yeah, anyway, so this is going to be, Subaru has promised us they're going to reveal some type of electrified vehicle before the end of this year. Most likely LA is where that will be in November, since that's where the strongest amount of support for electric vehicles and low emission stuff is in the country. So that's most likely where we'll see this. I'm not sure if this is going to be a name for the technology that they're going to have, or if this is actually going to be a new model that they're, it could be the Crosstrek Evoltis, or it could just be the Subaru Evoltis. I don't know. But anyway, interesting to see them at least trademark that name. Other electric stuff is Mercedes is rumored to be working on a fully electric EQS full-size sedan that's going to compete with the Tesla Model S. And so according to Autocar, they sat down with Daimler CEO, who talked about this briefly, just in passing, I guess, but basically said that it's likely to launch in 2020, and there could actually be a separate model on a different platform from the regular S-Class. So this would be part of the EQ line, which all share a common electric architecture, and you can just bolt an SUV body onto it, or a full-size normal sedan, or whatever you want to do. And so anyway, but apparently this could be coming, even sooner than some of the other electric stuff that was promised, in the 2020s from Mercedes, if this does in fact come out in 2020. So anyway, cool to hear that. Lastly, is Mercedes has, it's a report. They haven't officially announced this yet, but they're going to be launching a subscription service here in the United States. Now, they already announced one for Europe called Flexperience, and that has, a couple different tiers you can do. But the program here in the States is going to be called Mercedes-Benz Collection, and will be first offered in Nashville and in Philadelphia, according to Automotive News, who got wind of this. And like the others, from like BMW, Porsche, Cadillac, Volvo, and a few others that have already announced this stuff, it's going to include maintenance and insurance and all that type of stuff. But they haven't announced the program officially yet, so they haven't announced pricing yet either. But to put it into reference, I think Cadillac's program is $1,800 a month. BMW's service for non-M models is $2,000 a month. So something around there, I guess. But yeah, I'll be really curious to see if these subscription programs take off, because again, even at, $1,000 a month, I mean, maybe you'll make out on insurance, but otherwise it just seems like way too much money, for this, ability to swap cars, which I don't foresee a lot of people wanting to be swapping cars a lot. So anyway, we'll have to see how these things pan out, but I still really don't see the value over just a regular lease. But anyway, that's it for all the news this week, guys. Let me know your thoughts about everything in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.